Make this holiday season one to remember with Goldbelly, your one-stop shop for America's most iconic foods shipped nationwide. From the original turducken to the viral pie Kagan with decadent layers of Kagan pie, Goldbelly has everything to wow your guests with the click of a button. And with Black Friday around the corner, it's the perfect time to pre-order unique gifts that ship right to their door. Use promo code GIFT for 20% off your first order on goldbelly.com. The holidays have never been easier.
Welcome to Witchcast!
'Cause it's Witchcast!
I'm Emily.
I'm Kate.
And we're your hosts of this, the Witchcast podcast.
That's right. We're your learning, growing, ever-evolving novice witches here to just, check out whatever is within the woo-woo, esoteric, spiritual universe.
I don't understand it, and I want to know more about it.
Yeah, exactly. That is our motto.
The universe.
The universe. Who is she?
Who is she?
Who is she really? Today we are having a fun little duo episode of just the two of us exploring a really fun, timely topic. In case you need an escape from...
Two friends talking about mostly St. Patrick's Day and like Irish mythology and folklore.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everything kind of, I think involving St. Patrick's Day, like modern day practices and like where do they come from and like the symbols. We're going to talk about leprechauns. We're going to talk about shamrocks. We're going to talk about St. Patrick himself. So,
yeah, I feel like there's an interesting thing where like, especially with Wicca and like the sort of 1970s New Age white witch community has like this thing about Irish mythology. So it gets sort of like randomly pulled into places. Like the Wheel of the Year has a lot of like Irish days. Like Bridget is like sort of, it's like a saint, but also like a syncretized saint maybe. But
right.
like is very much part of like the Wiccan tradition. So I feel like it falls into like the Witchcast world to talk
Absolutely.
about like Irish folklore and mythology.
Yeah, for sure. Like, yeah, because of its like Celtic origins. Also, you're going to talk about St. Patrick's actual story. And I found that to be very witchy and related in a sense of like,
yeah,
we'll get into it of like, how his whole missionaries trip. Spoiler alert.
Kate, we maybe should have coordinated more on this because that's not what I'm going to talk about.
Oh! Well, I can mention it later then.
That said, I think we did do like a little one on the origins of St. Patrick's Day itself a couple years ago. Yeah. And don't worry, guys, if you didn't listen to that episode, I am going to retread that ground. I'm just going to do it pretty fast and then get to a different thing.
Okay, well, good. So then never mind you already know about it then if you listen to that past episode. And if not, then go listen to it again. Yeah.
Sometimes we do our research separately. We just sort of talk about like what our overarching thing is going to be. Like, oh, I'm going to do some like, spells and XYZ, and I'm going to do the history of XYZ thing. Or, we'll just tell each other like the title of our witch story time. So like,
because we like to be surprised too.
Sometimes this is going to happen.
Right.
But also, yeah. Delighted to surprise you.
Yes, I love it. Well, because I want to, listen with fresh ears, just like our listeners. Yeah. So I don't, it's no fun if I know exactly what you're going to, everything you're going to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Where's the delight in that? But yeah, Emily and I did divide up the research. So why don't you start? Talk to me about then what you want to cover and just go right into it. I'm so excited to hear more about St. Patrick's Day and Irish mythology.
Sweet. Okay, so what I have prepared for you is a quick overview of Irish folklore in general and like a note on St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, I love this. Thank you, Chef.
All right, so the first thing I want to do is talk a little bit about St. Patrick's Day. As we just mentioned, we did do an episode about St. Patrick's Day, more like deep dive into just St. Patrick himself a couple of years ago. I want to say like 2022. So like also, if you don't remember that, totally fine.
So long ago.
But yeah, I wanted to start this off with my semi-annual lecture on St. Patrick's Day. Thank you so much for being here. So, as a friendly reminder, although anti-Irish sentiment has largely waned in the U.S., and let's face it, white people do not have the biggest problems, it is worth noting that no Irish signs were still seen in London as recently as the 1950s, and anti-Irish sentiment does remain, if lessened significantly, in the U.K., or in some parts of the U.K., not everybody, obviously. The stereotypes associated with Irish people that were used by the British to oppress them over many centuries, which in lesser part carried over to the Americas when people came here, were that the Irish were naturally aggressive, lazy, and heavy drinkers. The way we celebrate St. Patrick's Day in America is not the traditional way it was celebrated in Ireland.
Right.
And though it's been embraced by some Irish Americans, you'll notice that generally the closer someone is to being from Ireland, the more likely they are to be interested in maybe like the parade or music or a nice dinner, and less likely to wear Kelly Green and chug green beer first thing in the morning. St. Patrick's Day is a saint's day in Ireland and is a much more quiet holiday. In fact, for a long time, most pubs were closed, like, by law on holy days in Ireland. And as discussed in that previous episode a few years ago, the celebration itself is of St. Patrick bringing Catholicism to Ireland and driving out the quote-unquote snakes, which were not literal snakes. It meant the pagans and pagan religion. So when you hear Irish influencers complain about the way St. Patrick's Day is celebrated in America, know that it exists in the context. You're celebrating Ireland being conquered and saying you're celebrating the Irish by being drunk.
Yes.
And I think there aren't many people who celebrate who think to themselves, Irish people are mean drunks, so I'm going to act like them. I don't think that's what's happening. I don't think it's meant to be mean-spirited. But when you hear people say that they don't love it, do know that there are people who see it in a bigger context and could read it as anti-Irish or, like, you know, racist in a way that doesn't really exist anymore, but, like, a little bit does.
It kind of does. This is all coming back to me now. I am absolutely now I'm remembering that episode. And I actually touch a little bit about this discrimination in my Leprechaun segment too. So yeah, absolutely.
Sweet.
Totally on board with what you're saying.
I love that. And then I wanted to talk about that because it's also important for the context of talking about Irish mythology and folk traditions, because so much of what we know of Irish folklore and mythology comes to us through the lens of other cultures. And because there's a lot of stuff out there that's like pseudo-historical, like some of the interpretations that you see in Wicca and the Wheel of the Year that don't necessarily actually align to Irish culture. They come from other people with an imagination, or, you know, what people want to see, or like other people writing it down and then interpreting that and then writing it down and then interpreting that, sort of like a giant game of telephone. Mm-hmm. I think it's also worth considering why so many white people in North America desperately want there to be like some sort of original religion, or to take pieces of a pagan practice that hasn't existed since like the 5th century without really looking at anything about Ireland since that time, or like its traditions, or like, you know, people. And sort of like treating Ireland like it's Disneyland, but someone else can tackle that in their graduate program and send me the dissertation when it's done, please and thank you. Anyway, so for those interested in learning about Irish culture, folklore, magic, and mythology, there are really sort of 4 broad categories to explore. And whenever we're talking about Irish mythology, we're really looking at, or folktales, or superstitions, or, you know, fairy tales, anything like that. We're kind of looking under these 4 blanket things, and we should be thinking about which one we're hearing at each given time as much as is humanly possible. So you have superstition and folklore that was passed down orally, so mostly just came through Irish people through oral traditions, like traditions around like the little folk and to a certain degree Selkies, but stuff like that, things that are like maybe like someone's grandmother's superstition. Mythology, as it was written down by Catholic monks in the 800s to like 1200s-ish, think like Hugh Holland and Dermot and Grania, like stories of like some of the like big mythology cycles of Irish storytelling that were originally Irish things, but they were written down by Christians who may or may not have put a little like a personal twist on it, or who might have not necessarily understood or wanted to like translate the fact that this was an oral tradition, like some of the way that it was told, or like, you know. Then we have things from medieval Ireland, which I think is very interesting and doesn't get a lot of attention, but There's like historical studies that are not as pseudo-historical, but very much real, that include both witch burnings and like very Catholic times. But also there was like sex magic under Brehon law, which was like in the Middle Ages in Ireland.
Oh.
Which I think would be very interesting to maybe do an episode about someday, but I didn't get to read enough about it to do it right now. And then there's syncretized traditions and Catholic-based beliefs, things like the Saints' Days, Belchina, the sort of harvest holidays that we see also sort of like brought into other modern traditions, maybe, and that are in fact celebrated, but in different ways in like Ireland and sometimes Scotland. Then we might see them in like a Wiccan tradition. And then that also includes things like stories about saints. Like a lot of the stuff about Saint Bridget is sort of like what if this was syncretized to pull old stories forward and what if it is just new stuff. We don't really know. But yeah, things that may or may not have been mapped onto older stories by Shanki, which were the oral storytellers that traditionally passed down Irish folklore. What else did I want to say about that? Oh, just that I have some resources for people that are interested in learning more about any of those things. Irish History Podcast is great. Ooh. It's just called that. There's like episodes on, like tons of episodes with scholars on like Brehon law, on like the discovery of a bog that has actual pagan artifacts, that if you want to learn about like the real stuff instead of like what someone may have like kind of known and kind of imagined. Like there's
awesome.
Some really interesting stuff out there. So Irish History Podcast, there's the Shamrocks podcast, which is a guy who basically is retelling some of these stories, trying to emulate more the way that they might have been told, or the way that he's heard them told, which I think is great.
Love that.
Those are the two big ones. Irish History Podcast and the Shamrocks podcast. And they're both made by Irish people, which I think is also great.
Irish. We'll link to those in the on our website, so you guys on witchcastpodcast.com, so you guys can check those out. That's awesome. That's super
100%.
fascinating.
And then, so since I figured I should probably do something interesting other than just lecture everybody, I wanted to tell you the story of Grania and Dermot. Which is from the Fenian cycle of Irish mythology. So we're looking at mythology as it was recorded by usually Catholic monks. And in this case, it was also like a poem. There's like a bunch of different versions of it over the centuries that you can check out. Or I honestly got the basics from reading a bunch of different versions. You can find one version of the story on wildernessireland.com and another on Wikipedia if you feel like you want, I don't know, a written version of what I'm about to say. All right. So, Fian McCovell, a powerful chieftain and the giant who formed the Giant's Causeway, needed to find a bride to appease his family. He looked around and found Grania, daughter of a high king and the most beautiful young woman in Ireland. Grania had refused every man who'd ever come to her because she had a childhood crush she was still harboring. But she didn't know when she'd ever see him again, and she was flattered by the offer from such a great man. So when Fian proposed, she accepted. But at their engagement party, you'll never guess, she saw him again, Dermot, the boy she'd loved since childhood. They were both immediately struck with being in love, and they decided to run off together. In some versions of the story, Grania actually drugs the whole wedding party just to be alone with him.
Love it.
However it happened, she and Dermot run off in the night, and when Fian wakes up the next morning, he finds his bride gone and his bed empty. And now we have an angry, jilted giant and a couple on the run. So Grania and Dermot never slept in the same place twice. They run across Ireland, and each time they sleep in new places, caves, alcoves, ancient tombs, bed-like stones. And they go this way for years until at Sligo's Ben Bulben Mountain, Dermot comes face to face with an angry creature, a boar or a bull, charging at his pregnant wife Grania. He saves her, but he's mortally wounded, and at last Fion catches up with them. Fion has magical powers. He can use them to save Dermot, but his ego gets in the way. He's been chasing them for forever, and he refuses to save Dermot, and instead he dies in Grania's arms. For this reason, the many caves, crevices, boulders, and coves of Ireland are often said to be the beds of the, star-crossed lovers, Grania and Dermot.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I thought that was a great little... I mean, there's a much longer and more poetic version of the story out there, but I thought that was a good little story. So, there you go. The Romeo and Juliet of Ireland.
Oh, it is. They truly are.
And in real life, you can go to, there are different sites that are called, their cave and stuff like that, where it's, according to the the legend. They would have
love
slept in all these, like you see a big rock that's shaped like a bed. Maybe that was their bed, you know, for a night.
I love it. Oh, what a great way to like tour Ireland too and get to see the beautiful nature.
Would be very fun, right?
Yeah.
A lot of rocks, a lot of crevices in Ireland.
Love rocks. Love them. Big fan.
And that concludes my short but hopefully interesting lecture.
No, fascinating. I love that you dove deeper into this because I do think that like you're right. We totally touched on the story of St. Patrick himself the episode we did a couple years ago. But I think it is still prevalent so much today that, you know, especially in America, North America, in general, because of, you know, immigration and assimilation and the melting pot effect, you have people who are very many generations now removed, and these traditions and these ideas and symbols get watered down or get adopted and blended, and we're losing that true, like, authentic, organic, you know, history of the Irish people, which is very different and separate from Britain and that history,
well, I mean,
you know.
And it's also like,
but...
you know, for centuries, the British and, you know, other people that came through very specifically tried to get rid of the Celtic language and like some of these traditions. So there's a reason that we don't have necessarily direct lines to whatever the original, like we don't have the ancient Greek and Roman gods of Ireland or like equivalent of Ireland, you know.
Super
we have like
colonized,
pieces because it was intentionally stamped out. And so it's okay to not know, but it's also like, there is history and you can learn it. And like also whenever you're looking at this stuff, it's good to think about like, you know, which one am I hearing? Like, which, like, is this, you know, where does this fall in like the grand scheme of like things that like someone could actually confirm versus things that might be a nice idea, but might not necessarily like line up.
Right. And that was actually something that came up in my research. So I was tasked with looking into, you know, the history of leprechauns. And then I also came across a quick thing about shamrocks, which I thought was interesting. But in my, you know, initial online searches, it was crazy. One, just like how little official sources I could find that were, you know, they're like American or North American based. There were some Irish, like from Ireland sources that I found and pulled my research from. But I also found like quite a lot of American based sites that were incorrect, quite frankly, like just very watered down and simplified and, you know, and didn't really touch on important details that I felt like were important to call out. So I'm going to speak about leprechauns, which is I think related to all of this, but I also just really quick want to say, like, I am Korean American, but I am adopted. My dad is Irish, pretty much almost, like, he did a 23andMe, I guess, like he's pretty much almost all Irish American, so I feel very connected to the Irish people in that sense. But also, hey, Ireland, Korea was colonized a lot too, so we feel you. Like, I just feel like there's like camaraderie there. We also had.
It's not like in some ways it's a story that has happened in a lot of places in the world, and that's great. You know, it's
not great, but
it's not
the
great.
Connections.
The colonization is not great, but the connection between peoples is good. Right. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, all this to say, I'm gonna try my best with pronunciations, and I probably will lean more into like the English like translation of these words, because I could not find translation keys for a lot of these words. Again, like my research was really tough because I think like the main sources that I found were very simple, and I wanted to go a little bit deeper in this. So just let's talk about Emily's favorite thing, the etymology of the word leprechaun.
Woo! I love etymology.
Yeah, etymology. So we're just going to start off. So the word leprechaun likely derives from Old Irish, luchurpan, the combination of lu and cor, meaning small body. The earliest recorded use of this term is in the Death of Fergus Mac Letty, a medieval Middle Irish story. Other variations of the name have existed throughout different regions of Ireland. I'm going to put them in our website. I'm not going to try and pronounce them. I really don't want to offend anyone. But you're
good. Gaelic is like infamously difficult to
so
pronounce,
hard.
Especially based on the way that it's written, because again, like Irish especially was intentionally killed. So like the version of it we have now is a reproduction of the original language.
Right. It's like an anglicized version of what it's like similar to like Korean, like there's no official anglicized way to write Korean words out. It's just kind of like what we think they sound like. But yeah. So anyway, but all of these terms from across Ireland, you know, kind of derive from that medieval Middle Irish term, leprechaun, or however you pronounce it. Apologies, meaning small bodies. So here's a few different possible inspirations and related characters or mythological creatures that could have inspired what we now know as our modern day leprechaun. The ancient Irish Celtic god Lugh, I'm assuming it's like Lugh, like, or Lunasa, you know, like half a Lunasa. I don't know. This is what I'm going off of. Again, I tried to look up pronunciations.
You're good.
Okay. He was originally the god of sun and light. He later became a warrior ruler during the Christianization of Europe. His statue definitely diminished, and he kind of was relegated to the underground world. And his name became something translated to Stooping Lugh, eventually transforming into the leprechaun. We also see small water sprites. Oh, that's a tongue twister. Small water sprites. So these were Celtic mythological figures, also known as leprechaun, appearing in the 8th century story, translated to, and again, I'm not going to say the Gaelic version, but The Adventure of Fergus, son of Leit, or Leiti. In the story, mischievous sprites capture the hero Fergus while he is asleep, take his sword, and try to carry him over water. He wakes up when his toe touches the water, and he captures the 3 sprites, who win their freedom back by promising to teach Fergus how to swim, which I thought was a cute story. And then there's a cluracan. Again, sorry, a solitary male household fairy that haunts wine cellars for the love of drinking and smoking. They actually dress in red and sometimes carry a purse of silver coins. And there's the Faradarig, an ugly fairy known for practical jokes, some of which can be lethal. So this, you know, this fairy could be seen as a dark fairy or a bad fairy or whatever you want to call it. So just real quick, well, let me talk about the early presence. So the early presence in the Irish tradition, like Emily was saying, leprechauns were part of this long oral tradition before written folklore. So there's a lot of place names like, and I'm not going to say them as they are, but translated to Hill of the Leprechauns in County Waterford or Pool of the Leprechaun in County Kerry, suggest their early presence in Irish folklore. In terms of the characteristics, so they do share these characteristics from ancient creatures in Celtic and wider European mythology. However, I thought was interesting is like the whole image of what we know them to be, with wearing green and the little hats and the pipe. That's a modern tradition. That's a modern interpretation that really kind of became popular around turn of the 20th century. With like the hallmark like commercialization of the holiday. You had when we had a huge influx, of course, of Irish immigrants to the United States during the potato famine and afterwards. As Emily mentioned, there was a ton of discrimination against the Irish peoples. There were really awful negative political cartoons and depictions of stereotypical, you know, Irish, quote unquote, like Irish folk, like with the button noses, and there were drunks and they were lazy. A lot of the stereotypes they had were very similar to the stereotypes that Black Americans also were pegged as, you know, by the mainstream, the mainstream media of the 19th and 20th century. But you know, like it was MSM. I know, right? Well, you know, like, but it was propaganda. Like, obviously, Irish people were very much persecuted and just like discriminated against, like not allowed into buildings and stuff. So, in a way, like that, the fist up, the drinking, the facial features, and the clothing. So a lot of Irish immigrants, when they came over to the U.S., they were wearing outdated clothes because, again, they had been starved and forced out of their country by colonialization of England. And, you know, they were not able to afford new clothes. They had to come with what they had. So that's where we also get the kind of stereotypical outfit that we see of the leprechaun today. But in the original depictions and stories of these Irish mythological fairies, they were not always seen wearing green. In Samuel Lover's descriptions in Legends and Stories of Ireland that was published in 1831, they were often depicted wearing red coats, richly laced with gold, with matching breeches, cocked hats, shoes, and buckles. That was also like specifically for the leprechaun that I mentioned. He was depicted as wearing a red square cut coat, like laced in gold, and short on a stool. I just talked a lot about what I already said in my notes, so I'm just skipping through. So like again, the color of green and all of this in the turn of the 20th century on the leprechauns also like coincided with green becoming linked to St. Patrick's Day, the shamrock, which I'll talk about in a second. So that's why we have the look that we have today. The traditional leprechaun, I also want to mention, a lot of them in the Irish mythology were ugly, stunted with a face like a dried apple. That's a quote from one of the publications, the written publications that I pulled from. Now, today, moving forward, let's talk about that modern image a little bit more in terms of the guarding a pot of rainbow, that a pot of gold, like, at the end of a rainbow. That exact origin of that connection is unclear. We're not really sure where that came from. Again, probably like from like the quote unquote hallmarkification of it all. Some people believe that leprechauns use their hidden treasure to trick people or barter with captors. So that was common through the mythology, that they were very clever, that they were tricksters in different ways. The different fairies that I mentioned earlier like had different ways of like negotiating with humans. We spoke with a fairy seer in past episodes, Rose Aurora. So I feel like this all felt very much in tune with that kind of language. Like when you're dealing with otherworldly sprites, you have to be really careful and clever about how you talk to them. Yeah,
Rose's description of like fairies, I think, aligns very much with what I've heard from like older Irish people in terms of like how they do, or like their attitudes. Like they might be more like, they might not be like, oh yeah, I talk to them all the time, but like in terms of like the superstition around it,
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and I forgot to mention this. So in the medieval period, I skipped a bullet point of mine, where we see leprechauns really coming to the forefront of stories was when writers were able to put it down in written word, right? We moved away from the oral tradition. So this was again in the Irish medieval times. T. Crofton Croker's Fairy Legends and Traditions of the South of Ireland in 1825, and William Allingham's poem Leprechaun came out in 1870 that helped establish the leprechaun as this dominant figure in Irish folklore that then evolved to what we know today. So, of course, today it's a huge part of American culture and North American culture, but like I can't speak for Canada. I don't know, Emily, if you see leprechauns everywhere in Canada, but they're very prominent here in the U.S. Obviously, you see them on...
Mm-hmm. I had to think about that for a second. Because the cereal, I think we have too.
Lucky Charms.
Yeah.
Which is honestly a great cereal. I do like it.
Yeah, and the image is like, like you said, it's like in a lot of ways related to some of the more negative cartoon images. Yes, but like it also looks a lot like the Fighting Irish, which I feel like is also still the name of like high school teams in, like, all over North America.
Exactly. So mascots for sports teams like Notre Dame, which my dad like loves Notre Dame, and I'm like, why do you love the University of Notre Dame?
My dad is also Irish Catholic and also loves Notre Dame, and
they just love it because they're Irish Catholic. Boston Celtics, so you see this imagery everywhere, and I even came across some like opinion blogs of people saying, that this is really racist. They should change them. And they kind of equated it to akin to seeing, the Chiefs or the Redskins, or like, seeing Native American imagery being used as a mascot. And of course, like, that's a whole other discussion for another time. But yes, I think it's important to keep in mind that where we get our images and our language and our habits and customs from, it's usually a racist origin. So like, when in doubt, it's probably racist.
Yeah, it's tough because it's like, again, I don't feel like there's a lot of people suffering from anti-Irish sentiment in the U.S. right now, so it's hard to be like, yeah, we got to get rid of this. But at the same time, it is kind of fucked up. Like, if it were anything else, it would be like, you can't do that.
Exactly. Yeah, so I think it's important to honor the history, but I do think like being like, we're the same as black people. It's like not a good.
Yeah, it's like you have to walk the right line here.
Yeah.
Being like, you also would never call a sports team the Stinky French. So like, why is it okay with the Fighting Irish?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
Just 'cause, but at the same time, not enslaved and need to like I think that there are definitely, especially Irish Americans, who tend to be like, the Irish had it just as bad as the black people. And you're like, well...
Right.
I don't think that's true.
Like, I'm very against like quantifying oppression. Like there's we're not in the oppression Olympics.
Yes.
There's so much room at the table for everyone to yes and each other. Like you can say that like Black Americans have been systemically and violently oppressed for over 500 years to like by our government, to the effect that we're still seeing today via things like war on drugs, redlining, broken windows policing, and not to mention slavery and Jim Crow laws. And yes, and Irish people, especially our grandparents, ancestors, faced a lot of discrimination when they first immigrated over to the U.S. as well. So if anything, we should have more empathy for everyone who is the oppressed group du jour, like, say, Palestinians or Muslims today, like, or, you know, Mexicans and Latin Americans. Like, we should maybe even band together even more. And I will say that I think a lot of Irish feel that way. They're very much on the forefront of a lot of anti-imperialism movements and activism. And I really love our Irish friends over across the pond. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, agreed. And like seconded on all fronts.
Yes. So briefly, let me talk about clovers. But that's pretty much all I have on leprechauns right now. I don't know if there's going to be anything more in the future, but that's what I have now. Okay, so shamrocks. So just briefly, we probably talked about this a little bit in our previous episode on St. Patrick's Day, but I thought this was just really interesting that, again, the shamrocks association with Ireland dates back to ancient times when Druids believed it could ward off evil spirits. The shamrock's 3 leaves were seen as a natural representation of the triadic deities that were common in Celtic religion and practice, and in pagan practice. So, of course, when St. Patrick came over and spread his Christianity, he used the shamrock as a metaphor for the whole Christian Holy Trinity, because, like, the Irish pagans were like, we don't understand how can, like, a god be 3 people and also 1 person. Like, I don't get that. So he was like, oh, okay, I'm going to take a symbol you're already comfortable with and familiar with and use that to like help illustrate. Which, okay, go off analogy, I guess, whatever. But, again, just like another example of, I think, like overall the global wave of like Christianity taking pagan traditions and symbols and repurposing them for their use. So now that basically entwined the shamrock with Christian faith and Irish identity. So as a national symbol, it became that national symbol representing the essence of Ireland and people over time, symbolizing rebirth, renewal, the coming of spring. It's also been considered the unofficial national flower of Ireland for centuries. And on St. Patrick's Day, it's customary to wear shamrocks and green clothing. We've talked about all this. It's supposed to represent the verdant landscape of the Emerald Isle. The Emerald Isle, had lots of clover. So that was like where it came from. However, when Irish immigrants came to the U.S., there were no shamrocks. There were no clover to be found in like New York City or, so that's how they kind of wearing green, and then like the symbol of just like the depiction of the shamrock was their way of connecting with that. So since they couldn't actually connect with the real plant itself.
Wait, is there no clover here?
I mean, there is, but I guess like I would imagine in like, turn of the century New York, it's pretty desolate. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess you're like, if you're in like the Lower East Side tenements,
right.
You're not like hanging out. Well, I mean,
right.
They did ultimately add all those green spaces, like little tiny ones, but I don't know when that happened. I feel like that was like 1920s. This is another topic for another day, but
right. Well, like, yeah, so this is, I guess this note was just like, it was during the 18th century. So I guess that's, however it was, when the wave of Irish, this is from Time Magazine, I guess.
Oh.
When the wave of Irish immigrants came to the U.S. in the 18th century, there were no shamrocks growing in New York or Boston or San Francisco. So while they celebrated their heritage with parties and parades, they substituted the color green and images of the shamrock for the plant itself. The first U.S. St. Patrick's Day parade was celebrated in Boston in the 1760s. And then you know.
I'll say this: there's shamrocks on the ground in Nova Scotia. Look, I don't know if they were brought in, but I always just thought it was a plant that grew here.
I mean, it might have. They just, again, like in the urban cities and again, like you said, like the tenement areas that they were forced to kind of be relegated to, maybe they just didn't have access to, again, green spaces. Because I do think like clover's so widespread. We'd have to look into like the origins of clover, right? But is it a native plant? I don't know. There's lots of different types as well. But yeah, again, Hallmark came in around the 1920s and Hallmarkified the St. Patrick's Day, which used the shamrock on their greeting cards. And then,
wait, like
course,
actual Hallmark?
Yeah, I didn't know this either, but like Samantha Bradbeer, who's a historian and archivist for Hallmark, they wanted to honor St. Patrick's Day in the 1920s, and the design they decided to use on their greeting cards was the shamrock.
Oh, when you were saying the Hallmarkification of the holiday, I thought you were being like, you know.
Yeah, like just colloquial. No, like they actually existed back then, I guess. Yeah. We should look into the history of Hallmark, but that's
that's another episode.
That's another episode.
Greeting cards are sort of witchy.
Yeah. Right.
There's an argument there. We'll figure out what it is.
Yeah. Well, now we know like there's also now Irish brands like Aer Lingus has adopted the shamrock as its logo. This imagery has caught on across the world. The shamrock has lost kind of its religious meaning over time. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people who still do identify it with its religious meaning, but the value of itself is seen as an auspicious image and item that brings good luck. Of course, even more so when you find a 4-leaf clover than a 3-leaf clover. So yeah, that's on the shamrock.
Nice. I also want to just amend myself quickly because I did say there were shamrocks on the ground in Nova Scotia, and I obviously meant clover.
Yes. Well, I guess like I don't even know is a shamrock. This shamrock is clover, right? I think
it's like the symbol is the shamrock versus the. I could be wrong though.
The plant. I should have looked
into
that more.
The plant itself, I think, is like a 3-leaf or 4-leaf clover.
If you guys know, comment.
Let us know in the Instagram.
Yeah, please correct us on our Instagram at witchcastpodcast.com. I didn't get the chance to look into like the gardening of it all. Although I'm like very pro clover. I love. I'm anti-lawn, pro native plants. Okay. I have 2 spells to share with us today. I know I said I was just going to do one, but I found 2 on our favorite source, Llewellyn.com, and I couldn't help but share them. One came out last year and one came out this year, right around this time. So I felt like it was perfect. So this one is called Call Forth and Manifest. It came out March 28th last year by Najel Lightfoot. And it says, the season of spring has arrived. You might live in a climate where you can already sow seeds in the ground. If so, lucky you. Either way, you can use the spell to bless your seeds as the physical manifestation of things you'd like to see blossom into reality. And I'm like really excited to start my garden right now. So,
yeah. And this coming week, as well as being St. Patrick's Day, is the first day of spring. So
right.
This is right on time.
Yes, perfect. Maybe you can grow some clover. Make your own shamrocks. So for this spell, you just need a packet of seeds or some seeds. Obviously, like if you live in an apartment, there's so many options. You can do windowsill boxes. You can do like those little hydroponic things. And we have one of those that's great for like herbs and stuff. Don't let not having a yard hold you back. Okay, so hold some seeds in your hand and say, little seeds you may be, you hold the essence of life to be. May you blossom by the sun, may you thrive in the moonlight. Little seeds grow into big things by day and by night. Obviously, I'll post this link on our website, witchcastpodcast.com, but you can put your own spin on this. The idea is to like imbue it with that meaning and intention, and then follow the directions for planting the seeds. And let them grow and, look forward to your harvest to come later.
Yay.
So I thought that was sweet. And then on that note, there's another spell that just came out, actually it was posted today that we're recording on March 11th. Yeah, I didn't even realize this is a Lucky Me container garden. So while you're creating your little garden, this is by Monica Crossan. They write, an iconic harbinger of spring, daffodils' bright, cheery flowers can't help but make us smile. That's why they're perfect addition to any good luck spell. And again, I'm following the idea of like luck and manifestation. Mm-hmm. So most regions you can find pots of daffodils or other flowering spring bulbs in grocery stores and garden centers. Again, for Northern Hemisphere folks. But of course, you can do this if you're in Southern Hemisphere with just fall plants as well. So imbue your home with luck, happiness, and loving vibes. Take those bulbs, like transplant these daffodils, tulips, hyacinths into a container and set by your front door. So again, you don't need a house. You can do it in your apartment. Tuck in a lucky charm, like a coin, a wishbone, a clover charm, a rose quartz, a citrine around the base of your plants, which I love this. And I don't do this. I have a lot of plants and a ton of crystals, and I do not let them intermix. And I really should. Like, why? Why do I not do that? I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. So as you put your little lucky charms and your crystals in the around the base of your plants, say something like this. Daffodils for luck, place lucky charm. Tulips for love, place rose quartz. Hyacinths for joy, place citrine. Bless this witch's home and all who enter here. Again, change the words as you like, but I love the idea of having a little welcome, beacon icon, charged with some charms and some crystals. And they go on to list popular spring bulbs like daffodils, crocuses, snowdrops, etc., and their associations. So I won't go into them now, but I'll post them on our website at witchcastpodcast.com.
Love that. Yeah,
Yes.
and then it's just like a happy little box that welcomes people.
Yeah, and who
you
doesn't
see it
love
and you're
flowers?
like, I know what that box is doing.
Exactly. So you're blessing your home, you're manifesting. I'm also a big fan of like writing down, if you're planting new stuff, write down a wish that you want to manifest, put it in the bottom on some nice paper, organic paper ideally, like things that won't damage your plant. Also, like if you're going to put crystals on the base of your plant, pick crystals that are not toxic to the plant.
Yeah. Make sure you're not putting in anything that could like disintegrate and injure your plants.
But if you write your the thing you want to bring into fruition and manifest on this paper, you can put it in the bottom of your plant and then put the soil and the plant on top. And then as the plant grows, basil's a great one for this because basil's so resilient and grows so fast. See your manifestation come to life.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
It's spring manifest.
Spring manifest. Yes.
Planting seeds and making them grow in a very literal sense, and then also in a metaphysical sense.
Exactly. All around, we're making the wishes happen, and we need them.
Oh, do we? God, I hope this is the thing that works.
I know. I was like, I need to, I think I might go into curses.
Just thinking about dabbling in the little hexes.
I think I just might deep. We said we normally personally don't do that, but I was like, I might do that.
We've talked about hexes in previous episodes, but I don't know if we've ever done a curse episode.
Yeah, I'd be curious to delve deeper into what's the difference between a hex and a curse.
Yeah, me too. Right.
But I've been on Witch Talk, and I love watching accounts that are just straight up showing them cursing and hexing certain people that we all know who I'm talking about, who have positions of power and shouldn't. And it's so gratifying to just watch them, graveyard dirt, coffin nails, clove and thorns and just melting black wax all over, and it's just and fire and brimstone. It's just very satisfying to watch.
I like that.
It's cathartic.
I'll have to check that out. Yeah. Even if it's only even if it just feels good.
It just feels good to watch it. Yeah. You don't have to participate in yourself. You can just if you want to. Okay. Today for card drawing.
Yes.
Emily and I talked about this. Normally we would draw a Celtic card, which I think is a great option, but we also have drawn from her deck, beautiful deck a lot. And I dug out my Pride Tarot, which we haven't drawn from in quite a while. Yes. And given that the LGBTQ plus community is currently being attacked in a major way, specifically trans folks, I was like, this feels like a good time to pull from this card.
Bring that thing on in here.
And so this deck is a collaborative deck. The artwork is created by a whole group of different queer artists. So I'll read from the book their interpretation of it, as well as who the artist is and everything. And we'll post it on our Instagram at Witchcast Podcast.
Sounds good. I'm excited to see what the card is.
Me too. Ooh. Okay. So, okay. I pulled the Empress.
Oh.
I technically did pull it reversed, but
okay.
we're just gonna ignore that. Just kidding.
All right. So the Empress. I mean, I guess. Do you want to read from? Do they have a booklet or anything like that?
Yes. Let me read what they said. What the artist's interpretation is. But go ahead, Emily. Tell us what we know about the Empress as just as a tarot card.
So the Empress is like in her power. She's sort of like a mothering figure sometimes. She can definitely be like a powerful lady. It can be a person or it can be like an energy in your life. And it's definitely like, I always think of it as sort of mothering, but it can also be like boss bitch, I feel like, broadly speaking. Can be associated with the earth for sure and like growing, manifesting.
It's a great card to pull for spring for sure, because I think of her as very fertile, not necessarily meaning like childbirth, but just like abundance and fertility of gifts, of love, of mind,
of spirit.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Creativity also, I feel like.
Absolutely. She's like the divine feminine, whereas the Emperor to me is like the divine masculine, like.
Yeah.
Okay. So this I'll post. It's a really beautiful illustration. I'll post it on our Instagram. But let me read you what the artist wrote. So this one was designed by Holly Sierra, and they write, the multicultural pangender empress appears with arms outstretched, embracing all manner of Earth's creatures. Her youthful appearance bespeaks nature's eternal pattern of rebirth. Love and creation are her domain, and her heart is an opening to the sky, wherein resides a gentle blue path to the universe. I chose to illustrate the Empress card as it appeals to me as an artist and a mother. The Empress signifies a strong connection with femininity, no matter what our gender, translating to gentleness, elegance, sensuality, fertility, creative expression, and nurturing. She reminds us of the necessity for creating balance in all of our pursuits. The Empress signifies abundance and indicates we'll be surrounded by life's pleasures. I embraced this card's positive message for the Pride theme because the world is becoming more open to gender issues now. Oh, God. And her promise is that the equality we dream of will come to fruition.
So what could it reversed possibly mean?
Oh, God. I know this. I don't know. This deck came out. I need to look up when did this deck come out, because that's so interesting. 2020, not that long ago. To me, I always feel like 2020 is like last year, even though
I know. I can't believe it was 5 years ago.
I know. Did you know, by the way, sorry, real quick, on the Yodel today, they were like, on this day in history, in 2020, the pandemic was officially announced and we were in lockdown. And I was like, you shut up right now. What do you mean history? Shut up.
Yeah, and also everyone knows New York City didn't actually lock down until March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, because that's when they finally let all the government workers go home, like the teachers and the city workers.
Right. Oh my God. Very upsetting. But you know what? I'm going to choose to interpret the reversal that I pulled out as that obviously we have things blocking this natural energy
towards the flow.
She wants to be like, we are her, like our Empress, Mother Earth, Mother is not mothering the way she needs to right now.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. But we need to do we need to continue on this path. Us in the resistance, us on the left, us who know, us witches need to like continue fighting that good fight, but also living within our own energy that she brings us, right? Like trusting in that, relaxing in that, breathing in that. And not because like them stealing our joy is one of the ways they win, right? And so obviously we all are very scared in different ways. A lot of us are very much in danger in different ways. So we need to show up for each other. We need to show up for those who are in danger, like especially our trans friends, especially our immigrant friends. Like, so, but we have to continue to like lean into Mother's bosom and like lean on her love to strengthen us in this journey. Because Emily and I were talking about before that we started recording, like this, we need to sustain ourselves. It's not a short fight. It's a long fight. It's been going on for a long time.
It's like the rest of our lives that will include some form of this. It's just, right now it's just particularly loud and scary. I mean, the other thing with reversals, it can call on you to like find it within yourself or like figure out how to like make it flow within you instead of externally. And like, maybe, your own creativity is the way to fight, or like your own nurturing spirit is the way to move forward.
Artists have been on, a big part of every major revolution in the past. So if you are creative in any way, maybe that's a good gateway to find some way to contribute meaningfully.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much for listening, guys. If you want to, folks, I should say.
Yeah. Thanks, folks.
If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can do so at Witchcast Podcast. There will be photos of this lovely card, among other things, on Instagram. We will have resources on our website, witchcastpodcast.com. You can email us at witchcastpodcast@gmail.com if you have feelings or insight or ideas or questions or, even, like I said, big feelings, art. If you want to send us your art,
we'd love to
tell you you're doing a great job.
And we could even share it on our social. We're so open.
Sweet.
Please reach out. Yeah. We'd love to hear from you all.
And if you love to hear from us all, don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcast.
Yes.
It really helps other people find us and us know that you care.
Yeah.
I think I might be melting down. Kate,
I know.
Finish this one?
I know. I was like disassociating into a spiral. No, but yes, let us know. It means a lot to us. It lets us know we're not shouting into a void, and it helps other people find us. And we love you very much.
Hey, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it.
Yes, same. Ditto. And until next time,
Hex yeah!
'Cause it's Witchcast.